Story 1. My wife cheated on our 10-year anniversary. My wife and I were married 10 years ago yesterday. She has been working on a big project for the last few months. The last 4 weeks or so, she has been putting in extra time, staying late, going in early to finish up by deadline. This is a career maker for her. I work construction. With the rain we have had, we have crazy hours trying to make up time that we missed. So I work 12 hours a day. It's nice, sometimes a little longer. If it's raining when I get up, I don't go in. Some days we get sent home when it starts too dangerous. I usually hit the gym for an hour or two. Thursday we started at 6 a.m. Mid-morning starts to rain hard. We go home. I go to the gym as usual. I cut the workout short and head downtown to see wife Megan, to give her flowers and make plans for dinner that night if possible. We really haven't seen much of each other this week. I went to bed at about 9 p.m. She wasn't home and called me earlier saying she was working late, not unusual for past month. I stopped and got some flowers and went into her building about 12:30 p.m. Nicole was at the receptionist desk. I told her I got here later than I wanted. Could she put the flowers on Megan's desk? She said, "I don't think they went to lunch yet. Why not drop them off yourself?" She buzzed the door to get back to the office. The place was deserted. I went to her office. The door was closed. I always walk in unless the receptionist tells me she is in a meeting. I walk in and some guy is standing behind her, nuzzling her neck. She is reaching back over his head. She is giggling only as much as she can, saying, "We gotta get this done." I am gut punched. I slammed the flowers down, said, "Happy anniversary," and walked out. I didn't hear what she said. Instead, Nicole said goodbye and left. Made it to elevators and out the building, then my phone started ringing. I bawled my eyes out all the way home. Went into the garage, pulled my camping gear out of the rafters and took off. I drove about 2 hours to a state park. I had no idea what to do. I just had to run. I hiked a trail we have been on in the past, about a 3-hour hike. I don't drink much, so I had no booze. I just sat there thinking. Looking back, I am glad I was in a rush. With me camping, we have black bears, which generally scare off, but get aggressive if hungry or cubs around. The way I was feeling, I might have eaten the barrel that night. My phone was blowing up from Megan, so I had turned it off. I left the park to get reception and turned it on to see my good friend called. I called him back. He said Megan called him to check on me, make sure I didn't do anything stupid. We talked a bit, told him I got to think this through, would catch up on Friday. So while I am thinking about this, I go over our marriage from the beginning to see what I missed. We come from completely opposite backgrounds. My grandfather raised me with my mom. He taught me about life. He had a little saying about everything. He told me marriage would be the hardest job I ever had. You had to work on it every day. God, I miss him. We did not have much and heard mom and grandpa having many discussions about bills. They worked hard, and my brother and I did not miss out on anything we knew of. Megan was born into money. Not overly rich, but very comfortable. Went to a great college, always had great clothes, a new car, etc. And she is 11 out of 10 beautiful. I would joke with her if she coughed about the silver spoon getting stuck in her throat. We met and started dating. I was dumbfounded how such a woman would ever be with me. We dated quite a while before she told me about her parents and lifestyle. Our friends called us the model couple because they thought we were so good looking we had to be models. Families were not as kind, afraid of the differences economically would come into play. Her dad and I started to get along, but my mom took some convincing. She graduates and gets her first job. We plan on getting married. We work out between us that we would expose each other to the lives that we live. I took her whitewater rafting. She took me to the symphony. We went ziplining. We went to an art opening, etc. We agreed we had to experience the other's interests. She was really enthused about the more physical things we did. I kind of like the symphony and such. I own 2 tuxedos now. I look back and do not see any red flags. Her first 2 jobs she quit because the men all tried to get in her pants. She was paraded out in front for photo ops, invited to conferences when other newbies were not. At dinner at a conference, a partner tried to get her drunk, then tried to force himself into her room that night. She quit. The next job, the same thing, quit again. This 3rd job has women as some of the partners and none of that BS is in her workplace. She seems very happy. We seemed very happy. So now, Friday, I am home. I called her, asked where she was back at work. I, being in a smart-ass mood, said that marriage is taking second place to her job. She responded since I would not talk. What was she to do? Fair enough, she will be home in an hour, so I wait. I want to save our marriage. If I am lacking in providing, then I want to fix it. I want to ask why, of course, but I cannot accept and I don't know answer. How do I phrase this? What else should I be asking? I know I will get all emotional and forget everything, so over the next few days, we will be going over and over this. Story 2. My twin sister and I took a genetic test, and we did not share any DNA. What should my next step be when no one in the family is telling me why? My twin and I are fraternal twins. Recently, we took a genetic test for fun because we wanted to see what we shared and the differences between us. Since we still share genes, fraternal twins are like siblings genetically. My grandparents had suggested the tests and got them for us, so our parents didn't know about it, but our results made no sense. My twins was coming up almost completely as Eastern European and Western European, which makes sense as most of my family are Croatian, German, or Austrian, so all of that would be accurate. But mine wasn't anything like that. It was almost completely Scandinavian, with some Russian and a couple of other places. Neither of which were on my twin's results. She had a very small percentage of Scandinavian, but that was it. And we had no matched DNA, which clearly seemed impossible. We were literally twins. We have to share DNA. My twin said they must have mixed my sample up with someone else. We ended up contacting the company, and my twin and I took a test again. It was the same result. Both my twin and I were really confused. We told our grandparents, and they just said that was interesting and said nothing else. My twin said we should tell our parents and see if they had ever done a genetic test, or if any of our siblings had, and then we could see if somehow ours were still right. I mean, it kind of made sense I'd have Scandinavian because I'm much taller than my mother, and quite a bit taller than my twin, and I'm way better at football and handball than she is. And I'm very blonde compared to the rest of my family, but I had thought it was German. When we told our mother, they reacted almost the same way as my grandparents, but she seemed annoyed and said that they're inaccurate anyway, and our grandparents shouldn't have told us to take one. And when we asked our father, he basically said nothing. I'm confused. I know my twin thinks it's just a mistake, but I don't think so. We have to share DNA about 50%. That's how twins and siblings work. Even though we're fraternal, we should still share quite a bit of DNA. But other explanations don't make sense. My mother can't have cheated on my father because my twin and I would still share DNA, just less because we would have different fathers. The results mean we can't share a parent or even be related. But I don't see why my parents would adopt me if I'm not their child when I don't think they've ever been to Scandinavia, and why they'd adopt a baby that's almost exactly the same age as their baby. I'm panicking. The person I'm closest with in the whole world, who I thought I even shared the womb with, might not even be related to me. My birthday might not even be real. None of this makes any sense, and no one is telling me the truth. I'm also scared my twin might tell her boyfriend about it, and then people might end up knowing that I'm some kind of fraud and my family isn't my family at all. Story 3. Mistakenly called the cops on my boyfriend when he had planned a surprise proposal. Now things between us are strained. Am I able to fix this? We have been together for 7 years. We moved in together after 2 weeks, adopted a dog and a couple of cats, opened a joint bank account, met each other's families, merged our friends into one tribe. It has been 7 really good years. I'm happy. I am not one of those people that need to be married. I don't need a ring, a ceremony, a piece of paper to commit my life to the one person I love beyond all others. I am his wholly and completely. That isn't to say I'm against marriage, because I'm not, but getting a ring on my finger is not a priority for me. When I have thought about it, I imagine a small wedding with our parents, maybe our siblings, and the officiant. Barefoot on the beach. No fuss, nothing elaborate, something simple that we could throw together ourselves. Then off to a place we could relax, eat, and drink without the formalities. If I had a dream wedding, it would be that or something similar. Back in July, my boyfriend was acting cagey. I knew he was up to something and trying to hide it. He is no good at trying to keep something under wraps. He's one of those people that, even though they don't say anything, act like they have a secret. I wasn't worried about his secret because I knew he would tell me eventually. I was thinking he was going to surprise me with a weekend getaway because I had been working long hours for a couple of months, and that's the kind of thing he does. One night I arrived home from work and his car wasn't in the drive, the house was dark, and the front door wide open. I sat in the street watching the house for a couple of minutes. There was no movement, no lights in the windows, nothing. I called my boyfriend 4 times, no answer. That wasn't like him. 1 missed call? Sure. 4 missed calls? Number. So I called the cops. I was still on the phone with emergency services when they arrived. They came over to me. I gave them a rundown on what I knew, which was nothing, and they went into the house. A few minutes later, one of them came out and asked me to go in with them. They lead me through the house to the back patio. I had flipped the lights on as I entered and saw that a trail of rose petals took us right out the back. Where wearing a tux and handcuffs, was sitting at our patio table that was set beautifully for dinner. It goes without saying that the surprise proposal was ruined. It has been about 7 weeks since. Things are not good between us. It was a simple misunderstanding on my part. My boyfriend thinks I called the cops because I knew he was going to propose. He thinks that I don't want to marry him, but instead of saying that, I found a way to make sure I wouldn't have to. We have discussed us getting married exactly once, and that was in our first year of being together. I remember the conversation word for word because it was only a handful words. Him, would you wear my ring? Me, yeah. Him, when? Me, surprise me. That was the extent of our discussion about marriage. I don't know how I was supposed to know he was going to ask 5 weeks ago from a half-assed conversation from some 6 years ago. I know I hurt him, and I've apologized for doing so. He refuses to see how it came about that I called the cops. He went to his parents that night because he was upset, then came home an hour later because they thought it was hilarious. Everyone he tells thinks it's funny. He is the one telling people. Before this post, I had not said anything to anyone because I know it upsets him. I don't know what else to do. He doesn't believe me that it was a huge misunderstanding. Am I missing something? Did I break trust or harm him in some way that I'm just not getting? How do I approach this so I can fix it? At this point, I'm thinking of proposing to him so we can move on from this. Story 4. I snooped through my boyfriend's phone. Got exactly what I deserve. My boyfriend have been together for 9 months. Prior to us getting together, he was married for a few years, but he found out she had been having an affair with someone out of state. We started dating through the separation and after the divorce had been finalized. Both of us had some trauma we were dealing with, but I thought we could work through it together. More recently, I'd become concerned that our relationship had become stagnant. I had fallen in love with him months ago, but was too scared to say it. But there was no signs of moving forward in the relationship or growing outside of our normal routine. We'd met each other's friends and families, and he had been with me through some pretty tough personal situations. To everyone looking in, we seemed completely in love, but at the rate we were going, I was afraid I'd never hear it. I couldn't understand what was stopping us from moving forward. This past weekend, we were staying at a friend's lake house for a wedding. At one point, he went jet skiing with a friend, and I stayed behind to start getting ready for said wedding. His phone had been blowing up, and unfortunately my trauma got the best of me, and I snooped. I found exactly what I deserved to find. He was texting his ex-wife. This wasn't just casual conversation. He was sending her things like, "I'm thinking about you," and every time she told him she missed him, he replied with, "I miss you too. I am heartbroken." These were things he said to me. When I confronted him, he apologized, after of course trying to deny everything. I decided to make the hour drive back home and skip the wedding. I was upset and I didn't want to ruin the mood. Today when I asked him why, he didn't really give me an answer other than he knew what he said to her was wrong. He did, however, tell me that I crossed a line by going through his phone and he wants to take a break from us for a while. I don't know what to feel. I'm sad that this might be the end, but I'm mad that this has all somehow been turned into all my fault. Don't get me wrong, I shouldn't have gone through his phone. I definitely made a mistake. But now instead of being in the dark about those two making me look like a fool, I know about it. What should I do? Is this end or is there a way to salvage this? Please help me. It's been a long time since I've been happy, and I feel like I ruined it again. Story 5, I stopped relying on my husband, and I think it's making things worse. I'm sure you all have heard similar stories. My husband, despite multiple discussions over the past 2 years, never takes initiative in chores or anything in our lives. I'm constantly the one reminding him and asking him to do things, and when I don't, it doesn't get done. He told me he started hating me because of it about 6 months ago, so we both had an agreement that I will stop telling him what to do as long as he starts following up with his promises. I followed up on my end of the promise, and he didn't within a few days. We agreed that since I wake up first to work out then make breakfast, he wakes up with our kid and takes her to daycare before work. After work, I pick up our kid and make dinner and manage the bedtime routine, and he cleans the kitchen while I do that. Every single day, I walk out after bedtime to the kitchen not being touched. It's so disappointing and hurtful. Usually, I get upset at him and tell him that I really want the kitchen cleaned every day, and he just brushes me off saying he will do it the morning. 25% of the time he does. But since we had the agreement, I stopped. I just pretended to ignore the mess and would get ready for bed because by then, I would have to get up in 7 hours. I let him be responsible for the mess because that's what we agreed on. 2 months later, and our kitchen was always a mess. Constantly, we would have molded food on the stove, next to the sink, crumbs everywhere on the floor. So I gave up and started cleaning whenever I had time. I learned to cook and clean at the same time. Stressful with a child, but I learned. Most of the time, there were a week worth of dishes and we have no dishwasher, so it took me a long time to catch up on washing the dishes. After bedtime, usually I'd be the only one cleaning. He would be laying in bed even though I wake up 2 hours before he does. He would literally yell at me about how I let the dishes get so stinky whenever he did wash the dishes, even though he agreed that he's responsible for cleaning after dinner. So I stopped relying on him and just started taking care of everything on my own. It's been 2 months of that mindset, and I find it harder to respect him now. He seems like a child to me, always complaining about everything and never puts effort, always too tired and grumpy. Today, I was very excited because my husband brought up the idea of a movie night date. He never brings up date ideas or plans them, so it made me so hopeful. He said he would rent a movie and after bedtime we would watch it. I made a fancier dinner and put our kid down. Kid took a little longer to go down, but I was fine with it because I figured he would clean today so we can have a movie night. I was wrong, he didn't even bother to close the lids on the pans on the stove. He just turned off the lights in the kitchen. It felt like my heart broke, and I cleaned the kitchen myself again. He walked out, didn't say a word, and watched YouTube videos at the counter. Once I was done cleaning, we went to the bedroom and he just laid down and went to sleep. It hurts so much. I was so hopeful this time. He gets mad at me that I don't treat him like a man, but he never shows me he's reliable. I'm always hurt by his actions. Anyway, any advice on what I should do?